All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a pretty heavy and, frankly, somewhat cynical worldview from Adrian Vale's book, The Coldest of All Cold Monsters. What we're going to do is strip away all that dense academic jargon and just have a casual chat about his top 5 key ideas on power, human nature, and society. We are simply looking at the blueprints he lays out for how the world really works. We're structuring this explainer as a quick countdown of his top 5 key ideas. Optimism is a mood, power always concentrates, history is a wheel, force is the grammar, and the illusions we believe. So, if you've ever felt like politics just kind of goes in circles, well, these 5 concepts explain exactly why that happens. Let's kick things off with idea number 1. Optimism is a mood. Vale kicks things off with a real punch here. He argues that political optimism actually isn't a logical conclusion at all. When people say they're optimistic about the future of democracy, they usually think they've looked at the hard evidence, right? But Vale says no, they haven't. They're basically just reporting the weather inside their own heads. They start with an optimistic mood, and then they go out hunting for reasons to justify it. It's kind of like hiring a lawyer after you've already decided you're going to sue somebody. Think about the difference between an optimist and an engineer. Vale argues that political realists, well, they have to be engineers. If you're building a bridge, you absolutely need to calculate the exact load limit before that steel snaps. But the optimist? They just build the bridge and, well, really wish the beam was stronger. Vale whims that building a society on wishful thinking is exactly how the bridge eventually comes crashing down with everyone on it. Now sure, people are nice every day. We hold doors for each other, we help strangers out. Vale isn't denying that. But he calls that everyday decency a hothouse flower. It's beautiful, absolutely, but it relies entirely on the artificial, secure hothouse of a well-policed society. You take away that gloss, and the flower just dies. Okay, let's move right along to idea number 2. Power always concentrates. This brings us to what's called the iron law of oligarchy. It's a fancy academic term, but it describes a really simple reality. Power always clumps at the top. And why is that? Well, because to get literally anything done at scale, you have to organize. 10,000 people just can't all open the mail or vote on every tiny daily decision. So you delegate. But the very moment you delegate, you accidentally create an elite leadership class that holds the keys to all the information and the money. And this is where Vale really challenges how we view democracy itself. We all love to think that democracy finally put the people in charge. But Vale argues it just gave the elite a new costume. The disorganized majority doesn't actually rule. In his view, elections are really just a periodic ritual where we get to pick which brand of the elite gets to manage us next. That brings us to idea number 3. History is a wheel. So, most of us are raised to believe that history is a ladder. Every generation climbs a rung higher toward progress and justice. But cyclical thinkers look at history and they see a wheel. A tough group builds a great society, but the sheer comfort of that success makes the next generation soft. In this view, the success itself literally guarantees the eventual decay. And here is the real warning for us today. The text suggests that the things we point to as absolute proof of our advanced civilization, think about our hyper-complex commerce, mass media, our sophisticated skepticism, might not actually be the dawn of some progressive new era. They might just be the late afternoon symptoms of a society that has slowly lost its core strength. Coming in at number 4 is perhaps the starkest claim. Force is the grammar. We usually like to think that force is just what happens when politics totally breaks down. But Vale suggests force is actually the native language of human organization. And persuasion? Well, that's just its cheapest dialect. It's the velvet glove worn over the iron fist. Think about it. We pay our taxes and obey laws mostly because, at the very end of a long chain of polite letters, stands someone with a weapon. Polite society only exists because that threat is so incredibly well hidden. You see this grammar most clearly on the global stage with something called the security dilemma. Imagine a totally peaceful nation building up its military purely for defense. But its neighbor sees this, panics, and arms up too out of fear. Suddenly, 2 countries taking perfectly logical, rational steps to stay safe accidentally lock themselves into a massive conflict neither of them actually wanted in the first place. And finally, idea number 5 explores how we tolerate all of this, the illusions we believe. The book outlines what it calls the machine of capture. It's basically how a small elite secures power without needing any smoky backroom illegal conspiracies. It's totally out in the open. They just lock down 3 interlocking systems. They fund the viable political parties, they influence the press through ownership and ad dollars, and they vet the judges. It looks like this great system of checks and balances, but in reality, it operates as a closed loop. And today, this closed loop is completely supercharged by the attention economy. Total power isn't about crushing resistance anymore. It's about preventing it from ever forming in the first place. Algorithms feed us a steady diet of outrage, which fragments our shared reality. By controlling exactly what we are distracted by, the machine ensures the truly dangerous questions are never even asked. So, what does this all mean? If you buy into this dark, cyclical view of the world, do you just throw your hands up and give up? Vale says absolutely not. You just have to change your expectations. He argues we should vote and engage exactly like we brush our teeth. You don't brush your teeth expecting it to make you immortal, right? You do it as basic, necessary maintenance. You defend your community without expecting to suddenly build heaven on earth. Which leaves us with a pretty profound question to ponder as we wrap up this explainer. Can we shed the comforting illusion that history is just a ladder of guaranteed progress and still find the energy to fight? Can we do the daily, grinding work of defending the margins where real people live and suffer just for its own sake? It's a heavy thought, for sure, but definitely a fascinating lens to view our world through.